Hello and welcome to the first IET virtual meeting for the 2019-2020 year. I'm Jenna Kelly, the Specialist for Career Pathways, and here with me is Kate Daly-Rolander, the Workforce Education Specialist at the Virginia Adult Learning Resource Center. And on the line, we've got Heidi Silver-Paquilla, our Adult Education Coordinator. Welcome to everybody, and let's get started. At any time, you can write in the chat or just speak up, and there's a little raise your hand icon you can use so we can make this more like a discussion and answer and discuss any questions that all of you have. So let's go over our agenda.
We'll be asking some questions from you all about how your IET went last year and what things you all learned. And then we'll be talking specifically about some reporting of IET. Since we did so well last year with our IETs, we want to make sure that we get everything down and reported correctly. And then as you can see, we'll start talking about this year and the awesome cohorts and credentials and programs that you all have going and will be going on for IET in 2019-2020. And then our lovely Kate will be talking about the Blueprint website. And then we will spend some time talking about the IET planning tools. So we have a lot to cover, but I think it's going to be a good conversation today. All right, so these are all preliminary numbers, and unfortunately it looks like it's totally my fault. I sent you a later PowerPoint that has the word preliminary on it, but these are actually preliminary numbers on the slides. Actually, this one is pretty safe, but the other ones are preliminary for 2018-2019. But we had 10 providers for Plugged in Virginia. Our 14 ILCE programs all had IETs. We had 14 of our AFLA-funded programs that had IETs, and we had 2 in corrections education. This includes, as you all know, this includes our reallocation funds and also our innovation grants, but that's pretty great. The top credentials earned, as you can see, are beefy and rigorous, and so we're excited to see the rigor increase in the IETs that were offered. We actually had, if you change the slide, so we actually had 5.5% of our total enrollment this year were participants were in IETs, which is really cool. And these are preliminary numbers, as I said, and so it's around 1,000 participants of our total 18,013 in our adult ed programs, but almost 1,000 participants were enrolled in IETs, which is great. So we're excited for that.
Hey everybody, I'm going to take over from here, and I am going to talk to you also about the preliminary data we're reporting. We are not certifying data until tomorrow, so needs to be known that this is preliminary, and we'll get our final data out and about in a PowerPoint that you can use and you can build on, as I have done the last 2 years. I'll have that for you in November at the program managers meeting. This slide is showing us that over 10% of our IELCE students participated in IET. So pat yourselves on the back, IELCE programs. Do you remember when you thought this wasn't going to happen and that students wouldn't be interested? You clearly have offered IETs of great interest. You've supported your students. You've made it clear how to get into these programs, and you've recruited and selected the right people to get into your IET programs. It hasn't been easy, I know, and you've shared the struggles that you have had and are having. Just finished reading all the program self-assessments. Clearly, it's still challenging, and it will probably always be challenging to serve the right kind of population in IELCE so that a portion of them find IET of an interest and that they're able to work in the country and that's what they want to do. All of those things have to kind of come together at the same time. So congratulations, you did it. 10% of the IELCE population looks great and a great place to be for our third year. We can grow it. I'm sure you will continue to grow it as the word of mouth spreads in your immigrant communities that this is a way to get a credential that is of value in the workforce. So keep at it, and it's really wonderful. The other big percentage, of course, is in the adult secondary education group. 21% of our ASE students participated in IET. So we're talking plugged-in students, we're talking some of our Innovation Challenge, some of the IETs that you're running with AFLA dollars. So that is great to see looking like that. And again, remember, it's preliminary. Very close, but preliminary. Go on to slide 6, please. And this slide is showing that 7.5% of our 19 to 24-year-old population participated in IET. And actually, the bell curve bubble is highest in that population, but also high on either side, right? Just under 5% in the 16 to 18-year-olds. And just over 5% in the 25 to 44s. And I think this is great, and this is what we should be seeing. This is where we should be really marketing the opportunity to participate in an IET is to the young folks who we know from research and service that an intense but short engagement is probably what they're looking for. They just can't make long-term commitments. Other things are coming and going in their lives, and getting them on their way in 6 months or 6 weeks, that is a great thing. And show them where they can come back, right, for the next stackable, or help them get on their way to post-secondary education and training from our program. So this is looking great. This is what we want to see. I think you all are targeting the right people, and they are finding you. I'm just going to look and see if there are any questions about the data. And this number 993, we're going to see that go up just a little bit with our final reporting, which is fantastic. So I don't see any questions. Jenna and Kate, do you want me to pass it back to you?
Sure, absolutely.
You ready to go on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Quick reminder, if you are on today, please just let us know that you're on by typing your name in the chat. We want to make sure we get credit for everybody coming here between our VLC and Zoom registrations. So make sure if you haven't done it, then just let us know you're here. Thanks, Shakira, and thanks everybody who's put their name in. Once it's in there, we're good. Hey, Rebecca.
So Leah, because some of the numbers are still preliminary, and we didn't actually share the PowerPoint with you, and so we are just sharing what's on the slide now, but we are not sharing the PowerPoint presentation with you. Thanks for asking that question. All right, so the next question, Kate, do you want to introduce the topic for us?
Yeah, we'd like to hear from you all. What lessons did you learn last year? What challenges did you find? What successes? What new partnerships? What resources did you find useful? Anything that was valuable, interesting, or noteworthy that could be useful to us as a group, or even just add to our knowledge base at IET? What happened last year for you all? Any new collaborations?
And feel free to unmute yourself and talk, or we can also read via chat too.
Hi guys, it's Rachel from Region 21. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hello.
Hi, so one of the things that we learned was that for the first time we stepped outside of the typical training provider, which has always been our partner through the community college. But we wanted to do a logistics certification, and they actually did not have that available. So we were able to partner with Hampton University College for the first time. And that has really turned into other opportunities for us. So it just kind of gave us the opportunity to work with another training provider who was accepting of the model.
Awesome.
And so how did you, just out of curiosity, Rachel, how did you find that partnership? How did the word get out there about your IETs, and so how did that partnership develop?
We actually had a space over at the Hampton University Center in City Center. And there was just some changes in leadership, and the dean and I spoke about what ways we could see collaborations continue. And so when they actually hired a workforce director, that person was then put in contact with me, and we were able to talk about what programs in IET that I was interested in seeing training be made available. And so that's really how it started. We had space that we were using, and then they hired a new workforce director.
Cool. Great, thank you for sharing that with us. Other cool things or things that you all learned?
This is Debbie.
Yeah. Hey.
Silence.
Hi, Debbie.
This is Debbie in Charlottesville. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Debbie.
Oh, okay. So one of the things that we learned is that the relationship between the trainer and the adult ed ESL instructor is key. And we've built in more collaborative planning time, which we didn't have before, because that's just going to be really important for the success of a program.
Yeah.
In our experience.
Oh, sorry, Debbie, I think did we lose you?
I was just saying that having that collaborative planning time for the two of them to work together is seems to be really important from our experience. So we've built that in.
Awesome.
For our next.
Yeah, that's a very good lesson learned. And as you all know, that's part of the IET planning tool as well. You know, just that how are the trainer and the adult ed, people, how is everyone, the teachers, the trainer and the teacher, how are they going to collaborate, and what's the plan for them to actually have that time together? So that's great that you've continued to progress in that partnership together, those two people. So that's great.
Jackie's made a comment in the discussion in the chat group, ways we can redesign IET to make sure we can make changes as we're piloting new additions to current programs. Jenna, can you expound on that?
Sure.
Or Jackie, if you can chime in, if you can unmute and come in too.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, we can.
Great. So I know one of the things we were really trying to do was develop our current IET to make it more robust and give more students greater credentials and greater abilities to stack those credentials. So we were doing at first a very introductory level program to kind of getting them on the career pathway that they were looking for, but We worked with Jenna to try to figure out what else we could do in order to just expand on that and continue building that pathway. We added additional courses in order to do that.
So Jackie, can you tell us specifically what credential you started with and then what you've moved to, just so we can have an example?
So we had started at first, when we first started it, it wasn't considered an IET, which was the child care for people who were interested in potentially getting their CDA and to work at child care facilities or work with children. The first thing we had was very, very basic, just basic ESL for childcare, learning how to communicate with parents, learning developmental stages for children, a lot of those types of things. And at the end, they got a Red Cross certification, which does not count. But I know we worked really closely with Jenna to try to see how we could change that in order to make sure it would be more robust and more full of additional things that we needed to do in order to make sure it was eligible to be counted as an IET. So we ended up adding additional online courses that students would take concurrently with the program. And we've already expanded it. So in order, instead of it being a one semester course, we've added additional ones so that at the end of the year, the student will be able to get their CDA certification.
Great, thank you. That's a great example of getting those students on the career pathway as soon as you can, and then continuing to foster the higher credentials. So that's great. Paul, I don't know if you can unmute, or Kate can also read it. She's a good reader.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, I'm glad you brought this up, because the English level and the literacy level in general of a lot of these certifications is a big barrier. So can you talk to this a little bit? We've got some static from you, but I don't know. I think we might be having some audio problems.
Do you just want to?
So this is so Shakira, that's it. I'll get to your question in a bit, and that relates to our IET map.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to go, Paul, I see that your microphone icon is filling up with green, which means there's sound there, but it's not coming through. But just so folks can hear Paul's comment, at REAP, there was strong interest for IETs. They did ServSafe Manager and Microsoft Office Specialist. But making it to the certificate was a challenge. Little time for additional outside study, demands on time, strong interest, but significant reality was the English level, the need to improve English in order to be able to pass these certifications.
So we'll just open the floor up, because I know this has been a problem that you all have been addressing and trying to find a solution for.
Yeah.
So I just am curious from all of you, what are some ways that you have addressed the challenge of lower level English skills?
Hi, Jen, it's Jackie.
Hey.
Hey, so for our program, a lot of our students, we've noticed that a lot of them have interest in some of our programs, but don't have the English level for it. So a lot of the times what we do is we have them concurrently enroll in English classes as well. And we've actually redid our scheduling of our classes in order to be able to accommodate that. So we have our workforce classes and computer literacy classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. And then ESL is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so they have the opportunity and the chance to take multiple courses at the same time, so they're able to improve their skills a lot quicker.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to address the challenge of English language acquisition among your IETs?
This is Becky down in Charlottesville. We have a cutoff of we don't take any lower intermediate. They have to be on a certain reading level before we'll will allow them into the IET.
Okay.
Okay. I know that I want to share something, but I want to make sure that no one else has thoughts, because I have a feeling if you do, you'll say what I'm about to say. So anyone else want to chime in on this about English language acquisition in your IETs? Yeah.
I'll add, the other thing we've also done is just making sure we build the English part into the lesson, so it's almost like a pre-lesson in order for the students, so the students get the vocabulary and get an introduction to the topic before they actually get into the material. Because a lot of the times the material is not made, well, it's almost never made for non-native speakers, so it's already difficult to begin with. So building on the lesson is really, I think, really key.
Great, thanks, Jackie. I know that some, and you know what, I was thinking about it, it's not even just English language acquisition, it can also be math skills or any other, adult education skills. But I know boot camps have been used for, which is not an IET yet, right? Just using a boot camp to kind of bring up skills. I also know that there's been PIVA Lite, I'm thinking of Rachel in Region 21, where they do kind of a pre-PIVA and then an actual credential PIVA. And then Carol Balsell says that they develop stackable credentials of their own bridge, which makes total sense too. So you're building that industry recognized credential, therefore your English language acquisition through those credentials. So that's great. Donna, are you able to unmute and speak to your comment? It doesn't sound like it. That's fine. Do you want?
Yeah, sure. No, so the Microsoft Office Specialist certification is very high literacy level. And Donna's saying that they found it difficult. A lot of their ELs found it difficult. So the teachers focusing on vocabulary needed for that certification, and they're adding a digital literacy class. So encouraging students who are interested in that to take that. But that focus on vocabulary is a huge thing. So kind of a pre-MOS specialist. I know a lot of people are also using North Star, which I think is increasingly recognized. I don't know that it's industry recognized as much, but it's an excellent way to kind of morph in, although that's a lot of time to do both, but it's a little more learner friendly. But the MOS certification, that focus on vocabulary for that is a really great way to scaffold that content for all of our learners.
Great. I had another question about lessons learned for you all who are doing co-teaching, or your adult ed instructor is actually involved in the training portion. Just curious the lessons you've learned about the safety aspects, whether it's OSHA or just how to keep your teachers safe. Just curious how you all have addressed that challenge, if it's a challenge at all. So that's just definitely something to keep in mind. I know that we went to the Experience Works conference. Sorry, it's not a conference, it's a consortium.
Ah.
Yes, and that was one of the things that they talked about, was making sure that everyone is protected, right? Mm-hmm. With OSHA certifications or with the safety skills. So as you're continuing to plan, and it wouldn't be for all of you necessarily, but the welding cohorts, or some of the cohorts where there may be safety issues, it's definitely something to keep on, like, in your mind and on the radar. I don't know if Heidi would want to speak to this one a little bit more. If not, that's okay. Um,
I just
Jenna?
want to quickly read.
yes, hi Heidi.
It took me a second to get off mute. Thank you. So part of this concern here, and Carol, you're on the right track. There are safety requirements for training environments. So when we are team teaching, when we are teaching next door to a lab, a welding workshop, construction, when we do construction trades, there are safety requirements that guide the training, the occupational training in that space, and for those folks, and for the teachers, for the trainers. So we were just curious if you have that conversation with your training partner before you begin an IET, if it comes up along the way, if you've made arrangements, oh, we don't teach in there, our teachers can't teach in there, we teach next door, or whatever the arrangements are. It raised, my awareness about all of the many regulations that our career and technical education training teachers have to work in and under in their environment. So I came back and thought, do we know that, and are our training partners having that conversation with us?
Thank you, Heidi. Kate, you said there was one more comment?
Yeah, I got a comment that didn't go out to the whole group, but it was from Paul from REAP about the Microsoft Office certification. And he said that they have had potential MOS students work through the North Star one cycle before heading into the MOS. And that's worked with students who are in the program at least 2 cycles. So they have 12-week cycles of classes. Okay. So I'm glad to hear that works, and I know other programs use North Star as a digital literacy alternative, so good to hear it's a nice bridge into MOS.
Before we move on, any other lessons learned that would be for the greater of the group that you would want to share? Okay. Heidi, we will turn it back to you.
All right. On this slide is covering some of the reporting requirements that I want to just give you reminders, and to thank all of you who scrambled with us in September or maybe it was October, I don't know. Time is moving, blurring here. But to correct some of the student records to reflect these reminders. So when you're doing data entry, remember you need to select the primary funding source. So if you've got students in PIVA, you can have them in as AFLA participants if you have some AFLA investment, instructional investment, right? We've covered this at other times. As long as there is an AFLA investment, even though it may be minimal, if there's an AFLA investment in the instruction, you may count those plugged in students. But you still should choose PIVA for their primary funding source. Otherwise, it's IELCE. If you are only getting IELCE dollars, and several of you are only getting IELCE dollars, that should be your primary funding source for all your students, no matter what they're working on. That should be Section 243 dollars. The next bullet is IET or co-enrollment indicators. And this is not required in the student record screen. You don't have to choose one of these because not all of our students are, this doesn't apply to all our students. So this is an optional checkbox, each of these, IET, and there's a checkbox for co-enrollment. But we really, really want to know who's in an IET. It's very important. It feeds into Table 3. You should be able to see your tables from last year as of yesterday. So when you're reading Table 3, don't go there right now because you'll get distracted and won't be able to follow the rest of the webinar. But when you go to your table 3, you'll see that IET students are broken out by program type and by age, which is basically what I showed you on those 2 slides just a few minutes ago. But that will be for your own program. So if you've got students who are getting Title I dollars for their tuition, if you've got students who are getting DARS support, if they are getting fast forward funds, if they're that means co-enrolled, right? They are co-enrolled in those programs if they are getting funds from them. So be sure and check that box because we want to know that. That helps us communicate with our partners in the state. The third bullet is program type. And program type seems to have gotten conflated with EFL. So we saw students marked as ASE who really were in an IELCE class. So that shouldn't be happening. They may be working in English language curriculum materials. They may be testing outside of the ESL test, but that doesn't mean that that's their program type. If they're an IELCE student, they are still an IELCE. So just watch for that. Don't conflate it with EFLs. And the fourth bullet here is about the post-secondary credentials, which we've just been discussing. As you know, credentials come from so many third-party entities. It could be the Board of Nursing. It can be the individual employer who is awarding a welding certificate that works for their company. It can be an online provider in the child care associate space. It can be Microsoft. There are so many different entities that award the credential that we don't have a way to do a match. So we rely on you all to tell us what that credential is and to have the documentary evidence in the student's file backing up that claim that the student completed the credential. So you guys can start typing into the chat maybe what documentary evidence you have been able to get. I'm thinking that the credential comes to the student through email, and they may share a copy of that email with you, or they get a hard copy credential in the mail and bring it in. You can make a photocopy of it. They get a little card, like from the Board of Nursing, or I know the Cosmetology Board sends a little card about the size of a voter registration card. There are many things that you can take a picture of and put, make a copy of and put in the student's file. It's very important when we come out to do a monitoring visit that you have that backup. And that's for credentials, because it's so challenging to have so many varieties of entities. Now, for post-secondary enrollment and employment, we do those follow-up outcomes a little bit differently. Those are both conducted by a data match. For employment, as you know, we use Social Security number to get a match out of the Virginia Employment Commission. Not all of our students provide their Social Security number, but we need to do a good job and maybe a better job at asking students if they would please provide their Social Security number, because it helps us document the success of the program and maintain our funding levels. You can use that line. Try and impress upon the students what it's used for. It's not shared with anyone else except in our data matching. And last year we had about 50% rate of Social Security numbers provided, and that's kind of about average in the country. But in order to get more matches, we're going to have more Social Security numbers, or a higher percentage, I should say. So that's employment. The other follow-up indicator is post-secondary enrollment. Now, some of you are located at the college, so that's interesting, and you may even have students in the same college database where you can see not only did they express interest, but they have actually taken the steps to enroll. That, if you have a screen that has that, then you can keep that in the student's file. Sometimes students will share with you an email saying, congratulations, you have enrolled in the following classes. Just acceptance to the college probably isn't good enough. The student would have to follow through and actually enroll in a class to be counted as enrolled. So on the ASPD, it does say keep documentary evidence for post-secondary enrollment. So help us understand what it is how do you describe the kind of evidence that you can keep? Go ahead and type those into the chat. What are we looking for here? What are we saying to you and to people who will be in your position in a few years or in a different spot, region, or program? How do we describe what the it is that would show a student is enrolled? We do matches for post-secondary enrollment. We have a contract with the National Student Clearinghouse. Many colleges and universities, 2-year programs are in the National Student Clearinghouse, but not all. And not all workforce sides of the community colleges, not only in Virginia but elsewhere, are in the National Student Clearinghouse. So we know we're missing a lot of our students. And we will work on getting a direct match with our own VCCS next year. So that will help. They'll be able to help us track which students enrolled in a class, either credit-bearing or non-credit-bearing at VCCS. But in the meantime, keep documentation in the students' files. And all of these other data entry items, do you all have any questions about them? I see some of you are writing the credentials. I appreciate that. It's helpful for us to get the kind of language that's going to be helpful to you.
So Heidi, I have a question for our participants. So Nicole and it looks like Katie both wrote that it comes from like the workforce development folks and the truck driver training. The students send you their certificate. I guess I'm curious, does it ever happen that the actual training provider sends you their credentials, or is it really a task of the students to give you the credentials? Are there any partnerships where the trainers actually immediately, or you have that partnership where the trainers send it to you?
Jenna, this is Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
We do the ServSafe Manager credential, and since we do it with our Career and Tech Center chef, we get it twice because he gets it from his download of who he's put into the test and who's passed. So he sends us a copy, but then we also ask for a copy from the student. So, and he's literally in the office right next to me, so I can walk over there and get that. So that's a huge asset to that. I had a harder time getting any type of proof from our community college. That one, I still have nothing. They will not communicate with us, even though it was a partnership. So that was a little bit harder, and maybe that's a lesson learned for me that looking at other training providers that might be a little bit more apt to working with us or giving us what we need on our end might be something to consider.
Sorry, just reading comments. So it looks like, Rachel, you do indeed get the documentation from the training provider. Okay, great.
And this.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. I've been trying to unmute for like 5 minutes. This is Katie.
Hi.
Hi. So, our training provider, which is the community college, they are required to put in grades into WES, which is the Workforce Enterprise System. So the students have to give them a copy of their CDL, and then we get a copy from them. But, they depend on the student to get them a copy of their CDL, but we've never really had an issue getting a copy of their credential. And then I just go ask the person who does the enrollment for the CNA classes for a copy for the CNA certification once they pass their state boards.
So, Katie, do they have to sign some sort of waiver? Because I know Rachel wrote that her VCCS partner had students sign a release of information. Do you know if you have anything like that with your CNA trainer?
No, I just asked.
Okay,
Her
sounds
office
good.
is right down the hallway from mine, so I just asked.
All right, no problem.
But I have a question about post-secondary enrollment. So I guess when I was putting in my data, finalizing everything up for 18-19, some of our students had enrolled for the fall, but then for whatever reason, a few of them dropped. So I guess lesson learned that you don't put that they're enrolled in post-secondary until maybe they've completed a semester of classes.
No, Katie, it's enrolled. The word is enrolled, and we've asked the question and kind of stopped asking. The word is enrolled.
Okay.
All
right.
We want to see them go on. We want to see them complete. We want to see them have a wonderful life. But the measure that we're asked to keep is, did they enroll? And not just, that's why I made the distinction between register and enroll. They need to actually choose a class, right, and get all the way through the enrollment process.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good, because I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
So documentation for that, I would think, would be you could print off where their class schedule, I mean, because you can see where it says dropped or withdrew or enrolled, if you're...
For those of you in the community college can, right? It's harder for programs that don't share a data system with the community college. But maybe the lesson learned is to get that information ASAP in August, as soon as, and have the students enroll while they're still with you, right? I mean, this is
what we know. Did.
Yeah, right. Have them enroll while they're still with you. Have them fill out the FAFSA while they're still with you. Make sure all of that is ready so that when they do go away from you, at least you've prepared them to enter.
Right. And, maybe for the folks who aren't under the community college, I mean, because we have somebody who walks them over to student services. And so maybe, folks who aren't in the community college could have somebody help the student do that, and then they could get a copy of their class schedule, and that could be documentation.
Right. So that should be, maybe, is the career coach. So we've emphasized to all of you to be working with the career coaches at your local community college. Let us know if that position is vacant or you don't know who, because we can reach out and get a new directory or something. so that you all are working with the career coaches.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And
I'm gonna mute now.
I saw a question from Jason too about enrollment with Title I. There isn't currently, Jason and everyone, an easy way to push a button and see who all is enrolled across the titles. However, that is the work that has been discussed and promised for 2.5 years. We have been working on what is called the Common Referral Portal for the last couple years, and happy to tell you that all the MOUs are signed. The contract with the contractors is in place. The tech work is getting started. The data sharing work at the state level is also getting started. We had our first data trust meeting last week. So the vision is that we would be able to have, I don't know about automatic, but some way to double check how many people are co-enrolled across our titles, and that it would be a much easier request of our data systems than currently. So not yet, but stay tuned. But if you have a student and you know that student is being supported with Title I dollars, you call that enrolled, right? If you know a student is getting DARS support, just call that co-enrolled.
Great. Heidi, do you want to go ahead and address your next reporting topic?
Yep. So, business services and career and training services. Thank you, everybody, for working on these new reports. You all did business services last year too, and we were amazed and impressed at all the businesses that you are working with, and really we're very pleased to be able to add those to the list of businesses that are being supported in the state by WIOA partners. This Venn diagram to try and help you see the difference between business services and career and training services. When you serve a business, it's a business service. That seems obvious, but go ahead and listen to that short little video that's linked there. It's just about 10 minutes long. There are a few examples that we use in there. In a way, you're helping your students, right? When you promote openings at a job, when you have a career fair, when you go to the Workforce Center and have a booth at a career fair to try and help students find jobs they are eligible for, or help them with their, or help businesses be introduced to students. That is work that is serving businesses. When a business calls and says, I could use a few volunteers and we can set it up as an internship, that's serving the business. And those should go on the business services report. Alternatively, when you are doing intake, when you're doing orientation, when you are doing referrals, you are serving the student directly, and that's career services. When we report career services, we put the denominator as our total number of students in the year, because all of our students are getting career services, right? Everyone's getting an intake, everyone's getting a pre-assessment, everyone is getting some information about this is the workforce development system in Virginia. Here's where you would go if you needed this or that. The denominator for career services is students, the number of students that we serve. when the state numbers are aggregated for business services, the denominator is all of the registered businesses in the Commonwealth. So, for example, we can say that based on the reporting anyway, based on the reporting that has been done, all the titled agencies in WIOA have served, I should have looked up the exact number, a large number of businesses last year, and the penetration rate in the Commonwealth is 8.8%. So we all, workforce development agencies, have served 8.8% of all the businesses out there in the Commonwealth. But career services, we're looking at our student numbers. Our total enrollment is the denominator of career services. So that is the distinction there. And for some folks who reported business services the first time this quarter, we had to go back to a few of you because we thought, no, that doesn't seem quite right. So, for example, we saw several entries of the Career Work Center in your region. Well, unless the Career Work Center itself is hiring staff and you are recruiting for them, then you wouldn't call that a business service. If you are going to the Career Work Center to offer resume writing, that's a career service offered to students. Okay, so that's a distinction there. The business services tutorial has been updated with last year's data, but recorded in October. And the career and training services guidance was updated, remember, in June, when the federal office revised their guidelines to have the ability to pay for credentials. So, but only credentials that are being earned by students who are in an IET. Training is reported only when the T belongs to an IET.
Right.
Okay? And now we can also pay for the credential if no one else will pay for it. Please, you know, be fiscally responsible and save your money. If someone else will pay for it, let them pick up the check on that.
So Heidi, I wanted to remind everyone too, training is not the adult ed component, and it's not the workforce prep component. It's truly the training component. So you only count the actual trainer. If you pay for the trainer, or if you pay for part of the trainer, that would count toward the 1,000 and 2,000 object code. But if you're just paying for the APE instructor, that would not go under career and training services.
Correct, correct. And that's the footnote in the federal guidance. That just pulled out as a little footnote in the federal guidance that's linked from our guidance. And I see there's a question. If the Virginia Career Work sends us information about a job and we circulate it to learners, does it count as a business service? The answer is yes, and the business that you put in is not the Virginia Career Works, it's the business that would be hiring. So if McDonald's is looking for a night manager and you circulate that, the business service was delivered to McDonald's, not to the Career Work Center. So we really appreciate all your efforts on this reporting. The career and training services gets turned in with our data, and the business services gets turned in quarterly. And we got another question here. Do we have a goal, a target? Well, I think that overall we'd like to see a greater penetration than 8.8%. Just as we say we're trying to get the word out, we'd like more students to know about our services, we'd like more students to come. Those in funded by WIOA Title I who serve businesses talk about, we wish more businesses would come to us so that we could link them up with the job seekers who come to us. So building awareness of the services available is part of the work, and part of that is saying to businesses how many of their peers are already getting help with recruitment and on-the-job training. Just like we tell our students, tell everybody you know to come and get this free service. We want businesses to talk to each other and say, why don't you call the Career Work Center? They'll help you find, you know, a carpenter or whatever. So it's kind of a baseline number. 8.8 is greater than it was last year, but remember last year we didn't have Title II numbers in there. So maybe we were the missing 2.2%. I don't know. But as we get better at reporting, as the news is spread, we do hope to see more businesses take advantage of the linkages that the Career Work Centers have with job seekers.
We were happy when you all last year, you know, we had no baseline last year of how many businesses you all served. And so it was really cool to see the amount of businesses you all already served last year. And even just first quarter this year, the amount that came in was just great. So good job getting the word out to businesses about your services, and you know, keep trucking along. Okay, so we are going, and feel free to contact me. This is Jenna, I think you know my voice. Feel free to contact me if you have any more questions about business services and or career and training services. I totally can walk you through the nuances and just make sure it's very clear. And so, yeah, feel free to give me a call if you need that for sure. All right, so we're going to continue. So now we're going to start talking about 2019-2020, and we're excited as you all are continuing this year. There are 8 providers of Plugged in Virginia. We still have our 14 ILCE providers. As of now, there are 12 providers, AFLA providers who are doing IET, and then we've got our 2 corrections educational providers who are doing IET. I think it's amazing, and it's actually grown. There is 140 projected cohorts, which is just so cool. And some of the top industries, but in particular some of the top credentials that are projected are welding, CDL, EPA, forklift drivers, childcare, parapro, a ton of healthcare credentials, including CMA, CNA, logistics such as CLT and CLA. And of course, we have our ServSafe managers and our various customer service credentials, our MOS credentials, and CompTIA, and our cosmetologists. So we're very excited as you all continue serving Virginia with your IETs and continue the partnerships. I wanted to remind you once again that if there's any changes in your IETs, please let me know. Send me an email. And if you need to update your IET planning tool, which we're going to talk about today, I know, but if you have to update your IET planning tool because your IET has changed, please send those to me. And if you're having a little bit of issue with partnerships or something's not quite happening the way you think it was supposed to, but you're not quite sure yet, go ahead and get our state office in the loop, including Kate. And if we can help you in any way, let us know as soon as you can, and that way we're in the loop, because then it's on our radar instead of when the problem has crashed around you, because it's easier for us to help early on, or at least for it to be on our radar early on. So just let us know as you can if things aren't quite going the way that you had anticipated, because we know you write these in the spring, And it's a long time a lot of times before the IETs actually get going. So just keep us in the loop. And that leads us to the question of how is recruitment going? Or if you're already running your IETs, how are those going this year for this current year?
Jason says it's been more difficult than the previous 2 years.
Jason, what do you think the factor is? For factors, plural?
Yeah.
And if you're not quite sure, it's okay.
Shakira also says definitely slower.
Hey,
Are you on?
Shakira, can you hear me?
Hey,
Yeah,
Shakira,
I can hear you.
talk to us.
So I think in our case, we had a change with the trainer on their end, and then on our end, we had our instructor go out for a brief stint on leave. So it was like a combination of, just changing personnel, and I don't know if that had something to do with those, familiar faces and getting people in there, and then just getting back to our processes, and I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know all I can think is like how to get back at it, and try to improve it from here on out now that we have everybody back. But I
Amy,
think that in our case, that's what it was.
Okay.
Amy Judd also said they had long-term instructors leave issues and had to adjust, and that's always difficult. Jason says they have students interested, but they just aren't at the language level they need to be. And Amy also says they moved their PIVA trades course to the fall. There was suddenly an influx of referrals from training
providers. That's great.
So
That's
hopefully that does bode well for the spring.
Makes it a little tough on you all, I know, but great that you were able to do that.
Jackie also says they have more interest for the upcoming session. This semester was difficult. So, and Marianne, huge drop in referrals from longtime social services providers.
Huh.
Any thoughts on why they're changing focus?
We're just seeing if Marianne. Yep, there we go.
Different things, and okay, from caseworkers, yeah. So lots of different factors at play there.
Okay. Well, let's see.
This is Rebecca. Yeah, cast a wider net, but recruiting very challenging. Oh, okay. So prioritizing so this is para.
Yes, right.
Education, looking for certified teachers over paras.
That's right.
Because there is a teacher shortage apparently.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good job, Linda. Good recruitment there. Right. Of 33 students, 3 cohorts.
All right, great. And so the MOS IET. Okay. Right, and like I said, just keep us in the loop if there's anything, that we can do, even just strategies, with recruitment. Just keep us in the loop as far as how we can help as you progress and as you progress to start thinking about I can't believe it's almost December. I mean, it's gonna be before we know it, right?
Always happens.
So as we're starting to think about the spring, definitely keep us in the loop how we can help. So now we're gonna have Kate talk to us a little bit about a resource that you all know about, that she's gonna show us a little bit more about it. So Kate, take it away.
So bear with me a bit. I'm going to share my desktop and go into the IET blueprint. Move my chat. Okay. The IETblueprint.com is a free resource for all of us doing IET, and I'm just going to look at a few major factors or major parts here, and then try not to take too much time. But The Virginia IET Blueprint is by us here at the Virginia Adult Learning Resource Center. And I want to point out along this tab here, the instruction. We have a lot of resources on here, but in instruction, we've put together, there we go, a group of resources for the 3 components of IET: academic and literacy skills, workplace readiness skills, and occupational training skills. So here we have links to specific parts of our Valoric website, including standards-based instruction, but also universal design and universal design guidelines, and then also the Virginia Education Wizard. They have a workforce page that really has some great resources for assessing aptitude, interest, and values, and also for interest, building technical and soft skills, resume interviewing practices, and even local career resources all across the state. Then for workforce preparation activities, we have a variety of resources here. Check out the Penn State IET Library. They have their own center for adult education, and they have some great IET resources. And also check out the Employability Skills Framework from Octane, which is a great place to start for building skills and building lessons based on workplace readiness skills. And then we have a spattering of some occupational training resources that are really great for adult education. So CUNY, their Career Kit project, has a lot of great resources for aligning adult education content and instruction with occupational competencies. Kentucky has some great resources, and then specifically for English learners, and then Links has a lot of industry-specific stuff in this collection. So please go and take some time to check it out. Additionally, we have the Pathways curriculum. I know some of you have been introduced to this. Vicki Sanborn put these together. And if you click on units 1 and 2, you'll have entire teachers' resources, worksheets, an entire curriculum. They're 6 weeks plus in duration for those who test at about the 1st or 2nd grade reading level, up until about 4th, when they can move into workplace readiness. So please check those out. And if you have resources that you found to be very valuable, send them my way. I'm always looking for great things to put into this site. All right, up here we also have some very specific information about TAA, Trade Adjustment Assistants, and their navigators, including where those navigators are. And the navigators are tasked with working with adult education to help find suitable training and IET programs for their TAA impacted workers. So you will have all of their contact information here, plus a lot of templates for their memoranda of understanding and other resources to begin working with TAA. And we have a sample memorandum of understanding here in Plugged in Virginia to help you get started. But if you have any questions about that, it's a great way to kind of expand the net for recruitment. Let me know. I'm happy to help in any way I can and get you on the right path, connect you to a navigator. And before we leave, I'm going to go back to the home page. And I know all of you got calls for information about your IET programs again and again and again from me, and it's for this map. Shakira asked earlier if we had a list of IET programs. We have, this map is an interactive map of all of our IET programs. So what you'll find for each region and each dot here, and the dots of similar colors are dots from the same adult education region. So you see all this pink up here is Northern Virginia, and you can scroll, zoom in and get a little closer views. If you go in here and you say that's not accurate anymore, and as you talk to Jenna about your changing IET planning tools, let me know how your information is changing too, so we can keep this as up to date as possible. Based on Shakira's comment too, I'm also going to add a tab up here for just a list, count by county, of all the IETs going on, so you can look at it in a different way too. But I will be sending out at least quarterly updates, calls for updates to this, so please keep an eye out for that. And if you look in here and you say that's not what's going on, let me know. But I need to have the full set of information. A couple people sent me like, these are the credentials we're offering, but I need to know where it is. This map works by county, so it does help me to know where it is in your region. But if you have any questions or any suggestions or any great resources you'd like to share, I'm always available, or you can put it in the chat too. Anything else?
Well, I was going to say,
fast.
we actually updated the planning tool, which is our next, and if anyone has any questions, please let Kate, now Kate can answer any questions, but I did want to say that we updated the planning tool top to actually make it go directly in, for me to be able to put it directly into Excel spreadsheet for Kate to have all the information she needs. So,
very helpful.
sorry, that does transition, but any questions for Kate? You can either make yourself unmuted or type them.
And the IET Blueprint's been on the download for a bit because it took us a while to get it 508 compliant, but now it is. So well, feel free to share. And again, if you think of something that's missing you'd like to see there, let me know. And I'd love to put it in there.
Very cool. All right, so we have just we have a little while left. We have about 15 minutes left of our webinar, and we want to be respectful of you all's time. And so, wanted to show you, and unfortunately, you all do not have this. There was, for some reason, there was no way to connect it to an email. So we will get this out to you after this. I apologize. But so we are, we're on this is a very draft version, and it's really just for conversation today. But like I said, the top lines, we're very excited that now we can take the information from the top rows that are in the table form, and we can actually take that and drop it into an Excel spreadsheet that Kate can then use to populate her map, which will be very helpful. But we also are working on a kind of a one-pager that will, that's directions to the actual planning tool. For a while, I was trying to create like the Grand Poopah Mecca, perfect IET planning tool, and it just got to be, it was just a little cumbersome. So now I think the better way to do it is to actually give you kind of directions. I know that Carabasal and Company have created one that they use in Northern Virginia, and that kind of gave us the idea to create some sort of tool that will help you with the tool. So as you can see, though, the tops have helped you. Will help you too, just as far as like the NICS code, because you have to use those NICS codes for your career and training services, and also for your business services, and then also as you're putting, even more so, as you're putting the data into the NRS. So that will help you all know. The funding source is going to be, is it AFLA? Is it TANF/AFLA? Is it PIVA? Who is paying for this IET? And obviously it can be more than one funding source, but we put it right there so we can immediately see. And for me, I have a binder of all my IET planning tools from ILCE, Plugged In, AFLA. It's per funding source. So for me, I can see it per funding source, and it's easier to know where to put it. One of the other changes that is helpful to me, I put the date of course and the weekly schedule right there at the top. To the right, and that's really helpful for me too, because then I can actually put it on a bigger calendar, or at least kind of have them chronological order, to where I can kind of keep track of, all right, who is starting in the spring, who's starting in the fall, I wonder how they're going, and I can reach out easier. The teacher employer partners, those are the same. The teachers here, we would like you to put both the trainer and the ABE instructor. And you may have a third, maybe you have a third teacher who comes in and does North Star with them, or, whatever. So the teachers are not just your ABE teacher or your adult ed teacher, but we're also talking about your trainer there too. Your employer partners, I think, is great. And this can be someone who's helping you to kind of develop the IET, or it can also be the placement in, right? So someone who's helping you to place your students after the training is over. And then a very new field is that plan for recruitment and selection. And again, that just helps you all as you're planning, because again, this is it's just a graphic organizer, right? So this is to help you to think through it as you're working with all of your partners, but then also, again, at the state level, it helps us to be able to see what your plan for recruitment and selection is as well. So your shared learning objectives, the biggest thing I can say there is please connect either your ELP standards or your college and career readiness standards, which, as you know, they're the same standards, they're just different, they're different colored books, but they're all college and career readiness standards. But connect your learning objectives to your standards, please. And yes, because this is a graphic organizer, Sue Park asked if we want the actual names of teachers and trainers. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go ahead and put your teachers on there, but you can always connect, or you can always talk to me if for some reason you don't want that information there. But again, this is your graphic organizer too, so as you're figuring all this out, it's probably nice for you to put your teachers there. Rachel, we can work with you more on so Rachel asked for specific examples of CCRS to the objectives, and so I'm not thinking of something right off the top of my head because I don't have my CCRS in front of me.
I would looking at a lot of these IET planning tools, the ones that have seemed clearest to me as if the planning has been most integrated are ones where the shared learning objectives, the 1, 2, 3, actually match the 3 elements of IET. Mm-hmm. So really focusing on sets of CCRS standards or the ELPS for the academic and literacy, and then really articulating workplace readiness activities that are also in the CCRS, and then the occupational training activities, because they're so it is difficult to have, like, you're not trying to, I don't think we can condense the entire unified competency list into 3 bullet points, but I feel like those that really address the 3 different elements of the IET in that section seem the most clear cut.
And yeah, absolutely, I understand Rachel, I understand the comment about it being directly on the lesson plans. And that totally makes sense because, you know, there is a very limited amount of space here. Excuse me. All of a sudden I started getting a tickle in my throat. But like Kate said, just in those learning objectives that you're going all the way across, tie those to the college and career readiness standards.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to have an example.
Yeah, and you know, you all can share yours with each other too. There's some very good IET planning tools out there, and you know, if you all want to share your IET planning tools with each other, I think that's a great way to do it too. And there are some, and you all know who you are, the ones who, you know, that I've reached out to and said, wow, this is great. So. You know, I will see if I can ask a couple of the programs if we can share them directly. And Heidi and I can talk about that later too. Okay, so as we heard from one of your fellow colleagues, the co-planning and communication activities are super important. Where, like, this is the plan. What is the plan for you all? For your ABE instructor and your trainer, and maybe your whole team. What's the plan? Like, how often are they going to plan? You know, are they going to meet once a week after the training class? Like, when are they going to meet, and how are they actually going to communicate the changes that's going to happen as the training and as the ABE, or I keep saying ABE, as the adult ed classes happen. So those activities can be a schedule. Those can be, you know, however that looks for your program. Again, this is a graphic organizer, so that could look different for everyone. So then the next one has not changed at all. Your literacy, workplace prep, and training services. Do you all have specific questions about those? Just the materials or the activities that would go in those three into that table, into that part, or is that pretty understood? I feel like that one you guys do pretty well at.
I do feel like some are much more specific than others, and specificity seems to be a good thing if you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So then timeline. This is, and again, remember this graphic organizer is to help you all to make sure that you are completely in compliance with what an IET is. So we are just making sure all the components of IET that makes a compliant IET are in this graphic organizer. In this timeline, that's really where it becomes crucial to make sure that in an IET, as you remember, they have to happen simultaneously, all three activities. So your adult ed, your workplace prep, and your training services all have to happen simultaneously. And so that's where this activity percentage chart comes in. I know you're doing more, you're probably coming up with a calendar, you're coming up with more specific lesson planning and a more specific plan, but this is to help as you are planning, and then also as we are looking at it, how much just to make sure all three are happening simultaneously every single month. You're doing all three components, whether it's, you know, the trainer's just coming into the class and he or she is just, you know, helping out a little bit, walking around, getting reorientated. You know, that's enough for the percentage of training while you're front loading your adult ed piece, right? So that 100% per month is to be a compliant IET program if all three make up that 100%. Was that understandable?
I like it.
Okay. I don't know why, I'm sorry about this cough all of a sudden. So then on the last page, there hasn't been any changes on this page, except we took the names off of the students. And this is just so that the personal information is not emailed to us at the state office. So it's just student ID. And then, actually, it has changed a lot, I'm sorry, because then if you are paying for any other equipment for these students, that's the other required equipment. So it's basically who's paying for training, and then like it's AFLA dollars, again, is ILCE. Unfortunately, we're saying AFLA dollars here. It should actually be AFLA/Plugged in Virginia, right? Because PIVA dollars might pay for all of this as well. But your training costs, how much of your training cost is being paid for by AFLA or by ILCE or by Plugged in Virginia, and then also what other required equipment is your grant dollars paying for as well.
And if you check out in the chat right now, I was able to attach the file there. So you should be able to download it there, but if not, we can email it to you.
We will, yeah.
Or we'll do that too.
Yes, absolutely. Heidi, was there anything else that you wanted to add? I know we've used our moments well today.
Well, I want you guys to think about this tool, and we want it to work for you. It needs to work for us, but we want it to work for you. This is something we've created together, so please let's think about it. We can change it up, and you can maybe use it as a planning tool with your training partner so you can get at conversations like, we need a co-planning time. When's it going to be? And try and stick to it, right? Not make it be an abstract promise, but when is that going to happen, and is the training entity going to pay the teacher for that planning hour? You know, if so, then that's a better give. If you tell us that you need to put on here so that the conversation happens in the planning stage, who's responsible for getting a copy of the credential, which we were talking about earlier? Would that be helpful to spell that out in advance? Say that in this round of drafting and redrafting so that we can make this tool be helpful for you.
I did take any comments that were sent to us or were talked about in the roundtable during the program manager meeting. I took those comments and actually was able to incorporate those into kind of the new feel. But yeah, if you have any other suggestions or ideas, please shoot them to me or to us, you know, so that we can continue to make this helpful for you all as you plan your IETs. All right, any other, I know we're pretty much out of time. I feel like we've used our hour and a half well. Any other thoughts or comments or questions for us? We'll just kind of open up the floor for a minute. All right, well, feel free to contact any of us. We're, sorry, Kate, I didn't put your information up such a shirt.
Very good.
But you know how to get a hold of us, and we would love to help out in any way. So thank you all for everything that you do for the adults in Virginia and for our students and just our partners, and we're just so thankful for you all. So whatever else we can do, let us know, and y'all enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the fall weather finally. See you later.